Before he left, Mina revealed that they were looking for a noble relic, because without it, the Demon King's forces would be able to destroy all of their cities, and realizing that his past was about to repeat again, Rein reluctantly agreed to join them. Arios said a worthless loser like him should have agreed from the start, and they all began mocking him. But Tanya and Kanade told them to wait, saying that before Rein could join them, they needed to apologize to him. She said that firing a man, just to go and ask him for a favor once more deserved something better than a YouTuber apology, and told them to grovel on their knees. And if they weren't going to obey her commands, she'd burn them all, but didn't want to upset her master, so she was willing to spare them. The idea of groveling at the knees of Rein made the hero scream, and all of them rejected the idea of ever doing anything wrong to him. As Arios went to grab Rein, he told him to keep his pets on a tighter leash, calling them disgusting, filthy animals. Because even though they were good looking, they were still nothing but worthless beasts. The shock of getting clapped by Rein started hitting Arios, and Rein told him that he'll clap him even harder if he was to ever disrespect his comrades again. So to those words, Arios said he'll give him a chance to be a man of his words, and challenged them to a duel. After Rein accepted, all of them began facing off, and Kanade had been paired against Agath, saying she was going to beat him to his knees and force him to apologize. But Agath said he would never apologize to a useless man like him, so Kanade sprinted towards him and nearly broke his sword with her foot, but began unleashing a barrage of strikes towards the man, each one as strong as a hammer. As he tried slashing her down, Kanade evaded, and Agath activated his secret Hellfire technique to slash her down. But she kicked it away like it was a toy, saying that men who carry big swords and try to look like Johnny Sins are usually compensating for something. Those words bothered Baldy, so he swore to unleash all of his powers, but Kanade thought he was weak, and said she'd been only using half of her power, but told him that it was nothing personal if he got hurt. As he realized she wasn't even trying, the man began trembling, and wondered why someone so strong would follow Rein. In an instant, she vanished towards him, saying that Rein was stronger than they could ever be, and kicked him in the face, knocking him unconscious and breaking the tree behind him. With how badly he was unconscious, she wondered if she overdid it, but thought it was only fair a man like him got his soul sucked out. On the other side of the field, Tanya faced off against Lean and Mina, and both of them began activating their magic blasts against Tanya. But with a single snap of her finger, she neutralized both of their attacks, saying their power was as small as their chests. Both of them realized they were clapped, so they decided to release their ultimate magical spells. But Tanya snapped her finger once again, canceling their attacks. This was one of the hidden arts, Material Canceller, and it is able to destroy the fundamentals of a magic blow and eliminate its effects, saying they had no chance of beating her. Both of them began unleashing all of their magical attacks, but Tanya kept snapping her fingers while wasting their stamina. And when Mina told her that she should bow before the gods, Tanya told them that Rein was her master, and could tame over thousands of beasts, and might even tame the gods one day. However, Lean and Mina decided to put all of their energy into their final attack, but Tanya snapped in their faces once again, telling them that they won't get to mock her master without a consequence. From beneath her feet, she began casting legendary level magic, saying that she will make the heavens crush their soul. The sky began turning red, and from above, they saw hundreds of sigils had materialized. As Tanya chanted her ultimate end spell and told them to accept it, they realized they were about to die, so they began apologizing and begged for forgiveness. Although she wanted to actually burn them, she would never want to upset her master. On the other side of the field, Arios said it was a foolish act of him to hit the hero, but before he could finish his sentence, Rein rushed to strike his worthless mouth, saying he doesn't want to listen to his bullshit. However, Arios unleashed his sword and began unleashing a barrage of strikes that Rein barely managed to avoid. Even though he was the hero, he wondered why his powers barely compared to the strength Tanya had in their duel, so he grabbed his arm, asking him if this was all he had, and punched him in the stomach to knock him down. Before he could wonder why Rein was that powerful, he smashed a rock with a single attack, but Arios continued trying to slash him down. However, Rein revealed this was the power of the beast tamer he mocked, because throughout his life, he was able to study the way beasts moved in order to tame them. So all that dedication has allowed him to see through his sword style, and with his cat spirit strength, Rein told him there was never a chance for him to win. However, Arios casted a lightning blast towards Rein, saying he also had the hero's unique magic, but as he launched his Gigavolt towards him, Rein's fireball cancelled out his ultimate attack with Tanya's strength. Even so, the hero knew this was Rein's only spell, so he began activating all of his other forms of magic to attack Rein. But he managed to continue evading all of them. However, Rein hadn't used his own powers yet, so as Arios began rushing towards him, he was frozen in space, and wondered why his body was paralyzed. After falling down, Rein reminded him that he was able to tame insects, because while they were fighting, he was able to locate and tame an insect using telekinesis, saying that he's been defeated. Even so, it was nothing compared to the clapping Rein was about to deliver for the way Arios disrespected his girls. So after remembering all of the hero's party abuse of him, Rein readied his fist and launched his attack towards him. When the dust settled, Rein revealed that he'd intentionally missed, because a direct impact would have ended his life in that moment. Just then, Tanya and Kanade came running back, and hugged Rein after all of them had won. A few hours later, they began exploring the Lost Woods, but Tanya asked Rein if she could just burn the entire place down. However, Rein told her that they would be fine, and began rubbing their heads, saying he was glad at how they protected him. But he still wanted to help Arios get the Holy Shield to save the world. Eventually, he found a bird to assimilate into and began flying to find the center of the forest. Although the path was hidden, he was able to find the directions they needed, and for hours, they began walking towards the location, but realized they've been walking in circles the entire time. Still, Rein thought it wasn't possible since they were walking straight for hours, so Tanya realized there was something off about the forest, and activated her material search. The magical circle emanated energy orbs to lead them away, and they found a tree that was emitting illusionary magic to throw them off, and the forest had kept changing to keep them away from the center. As Kanade tried punching the tree for fooling her, a voice emanated from the tree telling her to leave this place. From inside, a fairy appeared, an ultimate species that hadn't been seen in 200 years, and possessed magic powers greater than even the dragons. When Rein tried introducing himself, she told him to get his ugly face away, and as he kept trying to speak, she called him disgusting, and promised to kill them if they wouldn't leave. After a while of running, Tanya wondered why she had been hostile against them, but Rein thought there was a reason. She was protecting the shield of truth hidden inside, so he wanted to try talking to her once again. When they got back, he told her that he just wanted the shield to protect everyone from the demons. But after she warned him that she'll begin attacking, Rein said he'll gladly take her attack if it meant gaining her trust. As she summoned her magical arrows, Rein held the girls off, knowing that risking his life for others is the best way to gain their trust. In that moment, the fairy fired her illusionary arrows towards him, and was shocked that he wouldn't run away. Although she didn't understand why a human would act that way, since humans had burned her village and killed her people in the past, Rein swore that he wasn't one of those types, and wished for her to trust him. However, she said he was trying to deceive her, and fired her arrows once more. But in the last moment, Tanya and Kanade stopped her from attacking their master. They tried telling the fairy that Rein had saved them when everyone wanted to use them, and the spirit thought it was weird for two ultimate species to care for a human like him. So as she extended her arm, she asked him for his name, and introduced herself as Sora, saying she was willing to listen to him. After explaining everything, the fairy revealed she couldn't give them the shield, because it was the only way for her kind to remain invisible to the humans. However, she decided to bring it back out anyway, saying that she wouldn't want humans to be killed by the Demon King, and that the fairies had promised the previous hero to hold on to his shield until the Demon King was going to be reborn. While they walked away, Rein noticed the girl was feeling upset, and turned around, asking her if something was bothering her, and if he could help her. As she tried telling him the truth, she realized that she might put them in danger, but Rein told her that even if it was dangerous, he still wanted to help her. Tanya told her that this was the kind of man Rein was, and Kanade said that they were stronger than they looked, so they all wanted to help her. Because of those words, the fairy revealed that she had a younger twin sister called Runa, who was always protecting the fairy village with them. But one day, they had to leave the barrier, and when they did, a giant monster appeared before them. But their attacks were too weak to stop the demon, and it managed to capture her sister. And when Sora ran to ask the others to save her sister, their leader blamed her for being caught, saying no one would risk their lives for her useless sister. Those words crushed the fairy, as she never wanted to lose her sister, but Rein wiped her tears away, telling her that she doesn't need to endure her pain alone, and promised that he would save her sister. She hugged onto him, finally releasing the tears she'd been hiding away. A while later, Rein managed to locate the Shadow Knight along with Runa's trapped body, and began counting down for their attack. As soon as they rushed in, Rein launched his fireball attack, and although it was ineffective, Kanade launched from above to kick him down while he was distracted, and Rein punched him away in the stomach. The knight wondered if he was the hero, but Rein told him that was a disgusting insult, saying he was here to save the fairy. Realizing he wouldn't be able to defeat them, the knight extended his sword towards Runa, but Tanya managed to block his attack, and freed Runa from her shackles. After flying away, Kanade and Rein began attacking the knight together, but he was shocked at how the knight was still standing. Just then, he began spinning around to create a tornado, but Rein told Kanade he had an idea for defeating him. With a magic circle forming, Rein began searching the forest for insects, and found a nest of bees that he began taming. Although the poison might have not affected him, he knew it would buy him time by distracting him, and in that moment, Rein activated a spell to boost Kanade's physical powers. With the spell activated, she rushed towards the knight and punched him in the stomach, creating a hole in his chest, and eradicating him from existence. After he was gone, Kanade wondered what that warm energy he poured into her insides were. So to show her what it was, Rein said that he can pour his warm energy inside of her again at night. Back at the forest, the twin sisters began hugging one another, and Runa asked Sora who this new man was, saying she would allow him to tie her up and do whatever he wished to them. After fighting with each other, Sora revealed that they wouldn't be able to live in this village anymore, especially since her entire village abandoned her. However, she was worried about other demons attacking them in the forest, so Kanade asked them if they would want to join their party. Sora said that he'd already saved her sister, and Runa loved the idea of feeling how strong his body was, so she asked him if they would have them, and asked him to form a contract with them. Realizing that no one's ever tamed a fairy in the history of the world, Tanya said that she knew her master doesn't give up, so he decided to accept the challenge. Before the tree, he took up his glove and bit his finger, wondering what type of magic he could use to tame them. After analyzing all 1,000 forms of magic, he raised his arm and began the taming ritual, encircling both of them with the sealing ribbons, and his magical energy flowed from his hand to theirs, fulfilling the pact. Both of them saw the patterns on his hand, but Rein's energy had completely depleted, and he nearly fell onto the ground before the girls picked him up, saying they will always protect their master. Back inside the hero's mansion, the girls wondered why they needed to be hiding, but Rein handed them the shield of the truth, and Arios wondered how he managed to find the shield in 2 days, so he accused him of bringing a fake. At the table, Mina began appraising the shield, realizing it wasn't a fake. Before leaving, Arios wondered who those 2 girls were, but Rein told him it was none of their business, hoping to conceal that he'd managed to tame fairies. As he walked away with his 20 gold coins, Agoth asked him if he wanted to join their party, especially since they'd been struggling to do anything without him. All of them agreed to his invitation, and Agoth promised to pay him better and treat him better, but Rein knew none of them had changed, so Kanade told him to ignore the ugly Johnny Sins and leave with them. Because of that, Rein told him to shove his offer up his bald ass, realizing that the only thing he'd wanted in this life was people that cared about him, and he'd already found them. The rest of the party thought he was a moron for denying to be part of the hero's party, but after they were gone, Arios couldn't forget about the humiliation Rein put him through, so he promised that he would kill Rein. Inside the forest, the fairies wondered what made the hero different, so Rein explained that the gods had blessed the hero with their blood, giving him the limit break ability and allowing him to defeat the Demon King. This special power allows the hero to grow stronger without any limits, but the girls wondered if Rein possessed a similar power. After all, he was able to take Kanade's physical strength, Tanya's magical powers, and now he was able to use fairy magic. So Kanade wondered if he would be able to keep taming ultimate species until he was able to defeat the Demon King. Hearing those words shocked Rein. After all, he lived his entire life as nothing but a slave, so he never thought he would ever have people who believed in him. So to protect them, Rein promised to defeat the Demon King if he could, but thought he wasn't strong enough yet. However, the girls promised to support him when the time came, and Kanade reminded him that they'll always be by his side. The following morning, Rein realized that his room was getting packed, and wished the other room would open up because he was a spineless cunt who couldn't just fucking clap some cheeks presenting themselves to him. Later that day, the hot twins clung onto his arms while they traveled to the blacksmith, and when they got there, they thought the dwarf's ugly face was intimidating them. However, Runa found a whip and imagined Rein dominating them in more ways than one, But as Sora began beating her up, Rein found a dagger that he wanted to buy. However, he realized something was off about the materials that were used, and just then, an ugly moron asked the dwarf for the best sword in his shop, before dropping all his money on the table. When the dwarf picked the best sword he had behind the counter, Rein grew angry, and although the adventurer thought it was a powerful sword before leaving, Rein wondered if that piece of garbage was the best sword the dwarf could create. After all of the swords in the shop looked powerful on display, but used some of the weakest materials in their core. When he asked the dwarf if he was hiding something, the dwarf smiled, saying that Rein had an amazing eye, because all of his weapons were nothing but pieces of metal he forged in his spare time. However, he went on to show them the real swords he poured his soul into, saying that these days, all the adventurers believe that buying an expensive sword will make them powerful, so when they're bored of his sword, they throw them out as if they were worthless. And to Donovan, every sword he created was like a child of his, so he wished to only give the ones he cared about to those who will value his sword. However, the dwarf thought only a man as considerate as Rein would be able to tell the differences between his swords, so he promised to make him a personalized weapon. But there was one issue, and the dwarf revealed that he had no material to make them, clapping Rein's dreams of getting a small dagger like his small persuasion. A few hours later, all of them went to the adventurers guild that was packed, but when Kanade asked Ruby why there were more people than usual, she revealed that the hero was looking for supporting party members to recruit. Both of the girls noticed how Rein looked upset, but he patted them on the head, telling them that he would be alright. Just then, Ruby noticed the twins behind Rein, and wondered if they were friends of his. But Runa told her that they actually sleep in the same room at night. Hearing those words, Ruby wondered how it was possible for a disgusting loser like him to somehow become a great Muslim man with 4 wives. However, Rein tried telling her to do her worthless job already, and asked her to approve their quest of mining for mithril. This was the ore the dwarf needed, as it was one of the rarest elements that would create the greatest weapons. But although the dwarf had an entire mine of it, all of the ores suddenly disappeared, so Rein offered to find it for him. Donovan agreed, and asked him how much gold he wanted in return. But Rein said that the only thing he desired was the weapon he would make, shocking Donovan. This was the first time anyone's valued his creations more than money, so he promised to create the best weapon he can. A few hours later, all of them began traveling towards the mine, but Sora and Runa were too tired to keep moving forward. After all, they'd spent their entire lives like worthless loser shut-ins who never went outside and only watched anime. Yes, just like all you losers watching the video right now.
You're a victim!
Both of them were too tired to keep moving, and Kanade thought it was a hot day after all, but Rein knew there was water nearby, and when they got there, they begged Rein to let them go swimming. When Rein accepted, Kanade began stripping down in front of him, but his spineless ass looked away, and decided to leave them alone. However, he decided to tame 2 squirrels that would inform him if the girls were in danger, and decided to take a rest. Lake scene, you know what that means, plot, and even more plot. However, Kanade's tail was bitten, and the squirrels weren't giving him any information, so he ran to make sure they were okay, but saw all of the girls without any plot armor. After they screamed at him, Rein apologized and swore to do anything for them, but when they heard him say those words, they asked him to just keep being the way he is. After all, he was the best leader they could ever want, but they asked him to strip down and go swimming with them without any plot armor.
それはやめとく。
復権派の仲間に、ダイナに、クルーガーに。
A few hours later, they finally made it to the Mithril Cave, but Rein told the girls to stay hidden, because the only way such a large amount of mithril could disappear is if there were people stealing it. From above them, Rein noticed an eagle that began alerting the bandits, and when they came out, Rein told the girls to make sure they're still alive so he could question them. However, the bitches knocked them unconscious, and Rein realized he couldn't get information out of them. But Sora said they would be able to peer into their memories to learn about what actually happened. As they got on their knees, the girls activated their memory search ability, and inside of the bandits' mind, they saw there was an entire group of them that were stealing the ores. But the girls wondered if they were useful to him, so Rein said they were, and they begged him to give them head pats, just like he did to Tanya and Kanade. So Rein began petting them on the head, and both of the girls wondered what else those hands can do. After he was done caressing them, Rein told them that there was something off about the bird's movements, because it was likely controlled by another beast tamer. Inside the cave, the group of bandits wondered what happened to their comrades, but the beast tamer revealed that they were all beaten, so they needed to hide before they were caught, and ambush them when they least expected. As Rein walked through the cave with the girls, a massive fireball appeared, but the twins ran to deflect the blow. The mages tried to launch another attack, but the girls wanted more head pats, so they restrained the mages and eliminated their ability to cast magic. The two archers tried shooting them down with arrows, but Tanya burnt them down while Kanade knocked one of them out along with her. Once they were tied, Rein faced off against the Beast Tamer and told him to give up his life of robbery. However, the bandit tried rushing towards Rein, but he deflected his shot and knocked him down with a single punch. Even so, the bandit activated his most powerful summon, and from the other side of the cave, a behemoth appeared to crush Rein down. All of them realized it was a B-rank monster, and Rein knew only the strongest beast tamers could control them, but the bandit revealed that he'd been training it ever since it was young, and unleashed it towards them. Immediately, Rein evaded the first attack, but the cave was beginning to collapse as Rein continued dodging the blows. With a single stare, he signaled to Kanade to help the bandits escape. Once the girls had taken the bandits outside of the cave, Kanade wanted to go back inside, so Tanya promised to watch them while she helped Rein. At the same time, Rein was struggling with all the falling debris, but before the behemoth would crush him, Kanade took him away and said she would help him. So Rein told her that he would distract the behemoth while she restrained the tamer, since the monster would obey all of his commands. As soon as they got up, the behemoth tried attacking them once again, but Rein continued distracting it and evading all of its attacks. However, the cave continued collapsing, so Rein summoned a fireball to burn the behemoth. Just then, Kanade had managed to restrain the beast tamer, but he told the behemoth to continue fighting even if he was killed. The entire cave continued falling as the behemoth launched more of his attacks, and as Rein ran away. He knew that he would never let down his party, and swore to unleash all of his powers to trust in them. In that instant, the behemoth froze in space, and the beast tamer wasn't able to control his monster anymore. When he wondered what happened, the taming sigil on his arm broke apart, and Rein revealed that he used his power to overwrite his taming summon. Because even though it's impossible to overwrite one's taming sigil, he knew that if he believed in the words of his friends, he could destroy even the laws of taming. However, the bandit began screaming that he was the one who tamed the behemoth and spent his whole life training it. Those words began to destroy the behemoth's mind, so after he continued screaming at it, the behemoth started running to bite him down. In that instant, Rein used all of his mana in a fireball attack, and killed the behemoth, seeing the crystal remaining once the dust settled. This was the drawback of taming a monster, because the taming sigil could only keep the monster's hatred of humans under control. A few minutes later, the bandits confessed that they all had something in common, and it was that they bought Donovan's half-assed weapons. So to take revenge on him, they decided to steal his mithril ores, and Donovan thought that this was his fault after all, because he'd been dishonest with both his weapons and customers, and realized he was a failure as a craftsman. Rein said that he was indeed a worthless failure of a blacksmith, but held his hand, telling him to make it right, and to only make the best weapons until the rest of his life. Those words comforted Donovan, and he swore that from now on, he would only create the best weapons, starting with Rein's personal weapon, and asked him what type he wanted. The only thing Rein wanted was a dagger with a gauntlet, but whispered into Donovan's ears a secretive idea he had for creating them. Later that night, the hero kept failing all the beast tamers, saying to one of them that he was a worthless loser who can only tame a single beast, and asked the man if he could tame an ultimate species. However, the man said that it was impossible for any beast tamer to tame one of them. After the man left, Mina realized that every single one of the people they failed were the strongest beast tamers in the nation, but were all denied because they couldn't compare to Rein. And with Rein being gone, he was beginning to unleash his anger on all of them, and told her to rest for the night. But before she left, she told him to rest as well since he needed to save the world. But he knew that he couldn't save the world yet, not until he used the demonic ring he'd been hiding to kill Rein.